Welcome to my channel. I'm here with orchids today. Today, I would like to talk to you about some information about aerial roots, which is one of the most important issues of orchid care. Aerial roots are a topic that everyone is curious about in general, and that we have a lot of question marks about their care. I will try to explain to you a little bit about what is the use of orchids, especially air roots, and how it should be looked at today. As you know, orchids have two types of roots. One is the roots growing inside the pot, and the other is the roots growing outside the pot. We call these aerial roots. Aerial roots usually grow outside the pot. Orchids are epiphytic plants, and so they grow on a tree or on a plant. This is in the nature of orchids. But in general, the orchids we buy from the markets are orchids that grow in pots. Sometimes we can see many aerial roots in some orchids. Some orchids may not have any air roots. Actually, there is not much difference between roots in pots and aerial roots. Only the roots in the pot grow with the water or nutrients they get from the soil. But aerial roots only grow with the moisture, light or carbon dioxide they get from the air. If the orchid has many aerial roots, is it necessary to cut the aerial roots of this orchid? Or is it to cut the aerial roots? This is one of the most asked questions. Never cut the aerial roots of the orchid. Aerial roots are very important for the development of the orchid. If you cut off the aerial roots, the orchid will stop growing. Why are aerial roots not cut? Because aerial roots give us information about the health and general condition of the orchid. If your orchid has aerial roots and its tips are green, it indicates that the orchid is healthy and developing well. Especially the aerial roots are healthy orchids. In other words, it allows the oxide to produce new leaves, new roots and flowers in abundance. Another important point is that the air roots show the humidity level of your home. So you can look at the aerial roots to see if the humidity in your home is suitable for orchids. If the ambient humidity is good for the development of orchids. This is how your orchid will have aerial roots. But if the orchid's humidity is low, this will cause the aerial roots to become dry. If you have watched my video so far, you can click the like button and subscribe to my channel to support me if you haven't subscribed yet. If your orchid has aerial roots, and if the root tips are green and inactive. Now I will show you a very important method. I would especially recommend doing this today to revive the aerial roots of your orchid. You can revive your orchid by putting water in one bowl for drying air roots. Look, you see the dried air roots? The ends are not active at the moment. They are not green. So to revive them, and at the same time to make a water culture in our orchid. Look at this, we put the air roots in one bowl of water. In this way, we will revitalize the dried air roots of the orchid over time. And thus, we apply water culture to the orchid while it is in the soil. After applying this process, place your orchid on a windowsill with plenty of light. If you put water in the bowl as the water decreases, you will also ensure the humidity of the orchid. This is a very good method, especially for the winter months. So, how does the orchid develop as a result? I want to share this with you right now. Look, you see the roots. The root tips are not green, they are not active. But after you put it, look, the root tips of the orchid are green and starting to become active in this way. Because the orchid provides regrowth. When you apply this method, it accelerates the active and development of the roots of your orchids. So when can we cut the aerial roots of the orchid? I would like to address this issue as well. If the aerial roots of your orchid have dried too much and have started to rot, that is, if they are hollowed out when you hold them with your hand and they come to your hand in the form of a shell, you can cut the aerial roots of the orchid. But definitely don't just cut the dried roots in this way. If you cut only the rotting and hollow space roots, the orchid's aerial roots will develop. If the air roots are too much, do you think that the orchid is stuck in its pot and need to buy it in a bigger pot? This is one of the most common mistakes. Having more aerial roots does not mean that the pot of the orchid is small. As we said, it only shows that the orchid is healthy. Therefore, do not repot the orchid at all. If you repot, you will see that the orchid has stopped growing. And another important point, we can rejuvenate orchids. With many aerial roots and especially high stems. So what are we doing in this rejuvenation process? We cut from the stem part of the orchid. When cutting this stem part, the aerial roots will stay up and of course, there should be a few upper roots. In this way, we can get to orchids from one orchid by cutting an orchid from its stem. See, in this way, we have separated the upper leaves together with the aerial root. You can plant the upper leaves together with the aerial roots in one pot. And the roots in the lower pot can be planted in another pot. Thus, we will obtain 2 orchids. However, it takes 3 months for them to develop, especially for the roots in the pot to give cakey sprouts again. You can get one good result in 3 months. I hope this video was useful for you. In particular, I tried to tell you all the detailed information. If you like my video, you can subscribe to support me by pressing the like button and not subscribing to my channel. You can make lots of comments and ask your questions in the comments.